Welcome to Education and Safety. I'm Mike. Today is a beautiful day out. 63 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 63.7 8 9, somewhere in there. Little breeze, but nice. Sun's beating down. It's blue sky. It's gorgeous. Today we're doing some interesting stuff. We're going to work on some walking sticks. I actually have a walking stick here that I brought along and one that I'm going to finish, and that was the one we're continuing from the other day. So this is continued, and this is the third aspect of it. I guess you would call it the third reel, the third filming, or even the number three, continued number three. So let's call it number three. And what we'll do is go down here, and I'm going to start sanding this large walking stick on the top, and I'm going to start sanding it on the bottom and show you where I'm at. So let's get started. I think you're going to get some great information out of this today. I got some other stuff that I want to share with you too that I think is fascinating. It's about Nevada, California, and about some of the interesting aspects of hiking and climbing and stuff like that. Here we go. Let's quick talk about walking in the desert. Here we're going down a little bankside, and if you notice, there's rocks everywhere. All of these rocks have been floating, so they're all moving. Everything moves, so you got to find a nice spot, a flat spot, but also a spot where maybe it is supported by a rock, but it's not going to kick out. So that's a good one. And we're good. Walking sideways on a hill becomes a little bit more risky because you're crossing over. Even though you're putting your foot out here, you're still it's like crossing your foot over or crossing downhill. You got your weight on your uphill foot, now your downhill foot, your uphill foot, your downhill foot, and that can lead to a situation. Now we'll just come over here and we'll walk in this dirty stone, and then from there we'll just walk over here. We're almost to our place. But hey, it is what it is. Now we'll just come right over here. Now all these rocks here, a lot of them are secure, some of them are loose, but we're doing our best. I just heard a bird. So let's see what we got here. Do a little positioning here, and we're good. I'm going to set this down right here. Right here. Set this right here on the. So I'm going to set this right here on top of the rock, and we're all set. Let's see what we're looking like a beautiful day today. The climbers are out, the hikers are out, and the major climbers are out. Let's talk about the hiking stick now. Here we go. All right, so what we got here is a hiking stick, and it has been stained from yesterday. The bottom section has not been stained, and this top section here hasn't been stained. Now I'm going to sand this section right in here. I'm going to sand this section back down in here, and also right there. And then what we're going to do is, after it's all sanded, I'll denature alcohol the entire piece all the way from top to bottom, let that dry, and then I'll use my denatured alcohol with a towel, and I'll let that dry, And after that dries, then we'll use our polyurethane. Put 3 or 4 coats on. We're using 60 grit sandpaper. Let's get started. So let me show you what I got. I got 60 grit sandpaper here. I got a towel to use as a cushion. I'll sand this up. And what else am I going to do? After I sand it, I got some extra sandpaper. Let me show you a hiking stick that I just finished, which was part of that other section of video and filming content. Let me show you that real quick. That's right here. And that turned out pretty nice. So, we actually have a leather strap on it. The top of it's all been sealed. 3 coats on it. Feels nice. And it also has a rubber mount on the bottom. I did not put an extra lip of glue on yet. Maybe I'll do that today or another day or so. But let's get started. So this one's pretty nice, and it has a little strap on it, and we're ready to go. Let's keep rolling. One other thing I want to mention too, since it was a little colder yesterday, I'm going to let the polyurethane minwax down here heat up in the sun. I'll rotate it as I'm sanding this. I got my stir stick already. I'll stir that really, really good so it's great, and then I'll just start coating it, and we'll go from there. We can lean it up against one of these little trees here. It won't bother it at all, and see how it dries out. I prefer to put it out in the sun so it dries faster. We got the walking stick coming along pretty well, slowly but truly. So what we did was we used the desert sandstone. There was a sandstone piece of rock here I used. Let me show you what it looks like. So it was like this, and I used the different edges and corners and everything, which was pretty neat. And then after I got down with that, and I got it pretty far down on the wood, as you can see, then what I did was I went and used the the 60 grit sandpaper, and I finished it up. Now I'm going to denature alcohol it and then let it dry in the sun, and then I'll start my polyurethane. Here we go. So it's looking pretty good so far, and got all my things laid out here in the desert, and we're ready to roll. One of the interesting things is when you denature alcohol, the stain, which is what I did yesterday, or 24 hours ago at least, it cleans up nice. When I denature alcohol, the raw wood with some of the glue and the sand mix, when I glued the cracks, it actually, the denatured alcohol sort of like softens it up a little bit. So you got to be careful that you don't use too much denatured alcohol when you wipe it down, and then let it sit out in the sun before you start your polyurethane. So what's going to happen is it's going to go from dark, a light spot on the top, and then it's going to go light on the bottom, and then after that's all dried and everything's completed in 24 hours, then I'll put the tip on, and I'll probably drill the hole, maybe too, possibly put a hole through it. If I don't, I'll just put a cord around it like I did on the other ones, possibly. So that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to let this sit in the sun right here, just like that. So that'll sit in the sun. I'll time it for 5 minutes, and then I'll just flip it to the other side. I just saw a bee. So I just saw a bee, just saying hello to him, and then he was just checking out what I was doing. Then you'll see the difference between how the polyurethane takes on the dark and then on the light and so forth. Now, since this section has been stained, polyurethane is going to sit on top more than on this one. It's going to soak in more. So I'm going to have to be aware of making sure I put thinner coats up top and a little bit thicker on the bottom so it absorbs in to preserve the wood. Staining the wood is really important, but I'm not going to on this one. I'm just going to leave the natural wood and use the... Now I could take the stain and really dilute it down until it's almost clear and stain it here. Okay, I could do that. But since I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to leave it just as it is. And it should be really, really good. So we'll see what happens. And we're using the Minwax, which is over there. The can has been sitting in the sun. So we're at temperature now and we're fine. Anything, you know, with, and also too, if it's windy out, it's not a big deal as long as it stays off the ground. The sand, there's particles in the air, but it's not that bad. But today it's not windy. Now while the walking stick is drying from the denatured alcohol, I'm just going to stir up this a little bit and we'll be ready to go, and I'll get my towels all ready and my glove. I'll stir for like 3 minutes. I'll be done. Okay, let me show you. I took a towel. Once again, I always make sure that the small loops are on this side. I don't want any kind of fuzz coming on it. And then what I'll do is I'll dip it into that, and I'm going to hold this up vertically. And right now it's horizontal. I'm going to hold it up vertically, but I'm going to start it with it horizontal just to show you what it looks like, going from the dark over here and then going to the light over here and then catching some of these areas in here and so forth. So let's get it going, check it out. All right, so now you can see that the raw wood is absorbing it a lot more than it is on the unraw wood. So I just got to be careful I don't put too much on the stain side, or else I might not be able to get it dry before I take it with me. So I'm going to do it vertically now. All right, so what I'll do is I'll put the lid on here so that nothing gets in it. Just like that. I'll put the lid on and I'll show you it's drying. Just like that. If it gets a little sand on the bottom of it, it's no big deal. That's where the rubber tip's going to go anyway. Rubber tips are going right on down there. And then this goes up here and then that'll dry. And once that dries, I'll be good. I'll take a close look at it. So that's drying really well. That's drying really, really well. So I'll put it out there for 20 minutes. 10 and 10, and I'll flip it. And in 20 minutes, I'll put another coat on. So this is what it looks like so far. And so behind me is the walking stick. Now if you drill a hole 1/4 inch, it might be a little too thin. 3/8 might be better for the leather to go through. But if you drill that hole, remember you got to go back and take a Q-tip and put polyurethane in there. Do about 3 coats and make sure that you always make sure that you look through that little hole if you do put a hole through the handle to put the leather strap. And that way, if you put a leather strap, it's never going to move around at all. So that's really, really nice. You can also put a hole in there, or I'm sorry, you can also get a piece of leather and wrap it around this and then tie it up. I did that in my other videos. This one, I think I'm just going to use the cord on this one, on these. It should be really good. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm excited to find out. All right, already it's looking pretty good with the dark and the light going down there. And once I put another coat or 2 coats on of polyurethane, I'm going to probably put 3 coats of polyurethane on it. and we'll be good, and that'll be it. Okay, let's keep rolling. So I'm going to start to organize some of my stuff, put it back in the backpack. I think I have some water in here, and I also have a little bit of food. I'm not sure what I brought today. I can't remember if it was the apple or the nuts or whatever. But one of the things I wanted to share with you was something very interesting, and I'll do that right this moment. And this is going to be really interesting. Wait to hear about this. Okay, so some of the stuff I wanted to share with you is very interesting. We're going to talk about some altitudes of mountains around here. For instance, like the Shark Fin Mountain, that's like 8,159 feet. Okay, Lake Tahoe is 6,229 feet. Mount Charleston is 12,924 feet. Mount Boundary in California. Oh, I'm sorry, Mount Boundary in Nevada is the tallest mountain in Nevada. It's 13,153 feet. We got Mount Whitney in California at 14,509 feet. Mount Shasta at 14,184 feet. We got Mount Flagstaff in Arizona, 6,989 feet. The Continental Divide is 14,279 feet. That's just outside of Dillon, Colorado. Denver area, 14,279 Continental Divide. A Basin, Keystone Basin, pretty interesting stuff. And the most important aspect of it is that we got 12,924 feet sitting right here in Nevada. About 23 minutes, 24 minutes right from the strip. You can be in the mountains and you can be climbing serious stuff. And my recommendation is you got to be careful. The other little note too I wanted to mention to you, I found out that there is no mountain lion hunting in California. That's why there's tons of mountain lions in California. And if there's mountain lions in California, just remember that you can defend yourself if one attacks you, just like in Nevada. You don't need a permit to defend yourself. And the other thing is there is a mountain lion season in Nevada from north, south, east, and west. And that season is supposedly, you check with it yourself, it's all year round, but it's more of a protection thing than actually going to hunt them. It's more of like if they're in the area, they're either going to tranquilize them and get them out of the area, or they're going to take care of it and it's not going to be around any longer. So there's mountain lions here in Nevada. There's mountain lions in California. How many mountain lions actually attack people? Well, they gave you a number, a stat on, the odds of it, and that's pertaining to the population of the United States. But you have to do your mathematics with how many people actually go hiking, how many people go hiking in an area where there's mountain lions. Take that number and by themselves and at certain times of the day, and your percentage goes way up real quick of being caught off guard with a mountain lion. So that's how you work the percentages out. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is, most prop planes, like a single engine prop plane, there's many types out there. You'll see them flying by. That takes air molecules to go through the prop in order for it to get lift and force and momentum and airfoil. So the most important thing is this. The most important thing is that you have to experiment and know your altitude and how high you can actually climb for yourself, because air gets thinner as it gets higher. That means a motor in your airplane, the carburation starts to choke out and doesn't work if it's a regular aspirated motor. Turbo motors push air through, which gives you more air. So for instance, a carburetor on your car at a different altitude, if it's not adjusted correctly, it's going to start to not work so well. It doesn't burn the fuel as well. And then when it doesn't burn the fuel, whether you're at sea level or if you're at altitude, that's clogging your motor, clogging your pistons, clogging your valves. Your motor is not going to last. So it has to be adjusted for the altitude. Modern day cars are supposed to, in their computers, supposed to do that, but sometimes they don't, and that's why your car is not running right. So as soon as your car is not feeling like it's running like new, you better address it. Now, the other thing is the RPMs. RPMs is revolutions per minute. RPM, revolutions per minute. So for instance, a motor or a little something tiny might be, 1,000 RPMs or 700 idling RPMs. So your car is sitting there idling at 700 RPMs per minute. At faster speeds, like say 60 or 55 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, it could be maybe 1,700 RPMs per minute. An airplane, single engine prop plane, could be 2,000 RPMs per minute. And then we go to the jet engines, and you say, well, how can jet engines fly where there's no oxygen in lift? Well, the faster you go and fly, the more airfoil, air molecules go into your wing and lift your plane up. So that's how big jets can take off at sea level, going maybe 200, 240 miles an hour, 195 miles per hour. And then when they go up to altitude, now they have to fly at 300, 400, 500 miles an hour because the air is thinner. And you say, well, how can the motor work? Well, because there's a turbo, that's a jet. So it's pushing oxygen through it. And you have to do your research on that. And that's great. Last thing I want to mention to you, when you climb up, say Mount Everest or K2, and those are at like 28, 29,000 feet, so let's just call every 5,000 feet a mile, just to round it off. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, it's like 4 miles high, okay? And there's a point where young people with good lungs, can climb and have some oxygen, but older people have a really, really tough time. Let's continue. So that's altitude. The higher you go, the thinner the air, the more you need air in order to have combustion. Now, one of the other aspects is this, latitude and longitude. That marks your spot on Earth, latitude and longitude, okay? Longitude, latitude, and then altitude is up and down. And then you got to remember that everything is in motion. The Earth is in motion. Everything is spinning. So for instance, if you shoot an arrow a far distance as the Earth is spinning, you have to allocate for that. You have to allocate for everything, whether it's a golf shot, whether it's an arrow, or anything. You should really be allocating for that if you want to get super technical about what you're trying to do. I mean, someone who shoots a gun, a 2-mile bullet, Earth's rotation has to do with everything. There's all kinds of things that affect everything. Temperature, wind, humidity, altitude. There's so many things. That's why, to be the best when you're dealing with the outdoors environment, it's so tough to calculate all these calculations to be so consistent. And when you think about all that stuff, you can get really, really good. And you can, be in the top 10, 15, or 20, or 25 of a lot of different events because you're calculating all these factors into it. And, your uphill shot, your downhill shot, your uphill golf lie, your downhill golf lie, your side hill golf lie. It goes into so many technical things, it's unbelievable. So anyway, we're going to let this dry for 20 minutes, and then we're going to get it another coat on. And when you know you're ready to coat is when you touch this like this right there. You come over and you touch it just like this, and if it's dry to the touch and you can handle it, then it's ready to go. So this side where the sun was hitting it, it's pretty dry. So I'm going to flip this around and let it dry out. Okay, back to where we were. I'm going to clean up here. I'm going to take my denatured alcohol towel. I don't need these gloves. I don't need this jacket right now, but I do need, everything gets sand in here, so you gotta be careful. I do need my water, and I think I have a snack in here. Let's see, and it is an apple. So I'll take my apple out, and I'll have that, and have some water, and then I'll set my timer for 10 minutes, and we'll put another coat on. One little note, I sewed my hiking gloves. I sewed my mountain bear spray. I can't think of the name of it right now. What's this called? Bear spray? Frontier bear spray, that's what it was. And what else did I do? And I sewed my hat. So I took care of 3 different things. So now I'm prepared. All I have to do is find my orthotics, and then we are going to climb to the top of the Shark Fin Mountain. And we are going to adventure up there to see what it's like. Weather conditions for the next 2 weeks are supposed to be pretty good, so this might be the time we do a mountain climb to the Shark Fin. If not, it doesn't work out, when you're getting up there, you just turn around and you come back immediately. It's not worth getting hurt. It's not worth not being unsafe. It's not saying, well, I did it, but, I have, contusions of my head. I got a femur that's sticking out of my thigh, and I got the tibula, fibula. I cracked both of those, and I replaced 7 teeth. Not a good adventure or a journey. Not at all. So let's get this walking stick completed, because that is the one that will go to the top of the Shark Fin with me. That one right there, because that one's a sturdy one and it's strong. Possibly, most likely. All right, we had the apple, had a snack. Come over and test it. Now, some of the areas inside those little knots, they're not going to be as dry because the sun's not getting into it. But right now, I can put my hand on it and it's not doing anything, so it's not wet at all. So the second coat is going to take a longer time to dry, because when you put the first coat on, it so absorbs in. The second coat absorbs less in, and then the third coat absorbs the less. So each coat that you put on is going to take longer to dry, because it's not being sucked into the wood. Now it's sitting more on top of the other polymers. So just remember that. So on time consumption, so this one's going to probably take a half an hour to dry, and then the third coat will probably take an hour to dry. So let's get this done. So what I did was I closed the lid to the polyurethane, and you can see that it's much more shiny now with the second coat, because it doesn't absorb so much. Then the third coat that I put on has to be super thin, or it'll take forever to dry. Also, if you put a third coat on too thick, since it's sitting there, it's just going to run down and create drips, and you don't want any drips. I mean, it's no big deal, but you just want to try to eliminate as many drips as possible. So I closed the lid. I always clean my fingers if I get any on it. So what I did was I used my rubber glove to put the polyurethane on it, and then the last thing I did was I held it right here, and I just did the top of it, and then I just set it in there, and that's it. And it'll dry in about 15 minutes. I'll turn it, and it'll dry the other side. So this is on this side, and then I'll have it go on the other side, and then 15 minutes it'll be dry, and hopefully in half an hour this whole thing will be dry. Then we'll put a third final coat on it, pack everything up, leave this sit here for now, and then we'll take a little hike up and see what's going on. Looks like we got people hiking and climbing everywhere. Pretty interesting stuff today here. It's like 63, no wind, slight breeze, 3 to 4, maybe up in the mountains, maybe 5, 15, 20 miles an hour. Temperature is probably 10 degrees different. Mount Charleston from right here is probably, I would say, if it's usually it's 30 degrees. So if it's 63, 53, 43, 33, it's 33 degrees Fahrenheit in the woods where it's shaded. In the sun, that's a different story, and there's no wind blowing. But a lot more wind, a lot more shade, a lot more colder temperatures for sure. And just count on 30 degrees. It can even go worse than that, but count on that. If it's only 20, 25, you got lucky, but let's get this finished. Let's get this all done. I wanted to mention this to you, that I've been out in the desert here doing this now, and this is 750 milliliters of water, and this is almost done. And is it necessary to stay hydrated? Hydrated, or hydrated, or hydrogenation, or hydrated? You pick one of the words and stick with it. So this is amazing, the water. Now I put lemons in here, I cut them in, I throw them in, so now I'm getting some vitamin C, I'm getting some nutrients, just besides water and so forth. So that's what I'm doing. How many would I take of these if I was going to hike somewhere far? I would probably say, oh my gosh, this is 750 milliliters. I'm thinking probably 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 of these. 5 of these I'd take if I was going to go somewhere pretty far, past 4 hours for sure, especially in the dry out here. In the wintertime, you might not need as much. If you don't need it, you can always give it to someone else, or when you're done with your trip, you can feed a little critter. Chameleons come up to you all the time looking for water all the time. They come up to say hi, but a lot of hikers, they'll take a couple droplets and put it on a rock, and a chameleon come back and lick the rock and get some hydration. But most of the animals out here take care of themselves. They know how to take care of themselves, so you don't have to help them out. Unless they're really crying for help. And most of the animals out here don't cry for help. Let's keep going. It's still moist. So what I'm going to do is this is what I'm going to do. Get all my stuff packed up. Whoops. Get things off the desert as quick as you can. You don't want it on the desert. Not a chance. Everything will say, hey, there's a new home. And next thing you know, you're backpacking some critters. And you don't want to backpack critters. So as soon as you hear something fall, immediately get it out of the desert. And that's my recommendation. So what I was saying was, we're going to let this dry for 15 minutes. I'm going to coat it, and we're going to take a walk up this way. I think there's some spring water up here. I'm going to see if I can get some birds and possibly a jackrabbit. And I did mention to you before about the mountain lions, but where there's a lot of people, there's typically not a lot of mountain lions. But when there's sparse food, and like I was up to Sharkfin Pass, Sharkfin Trail, climbing up towards the Sharkfin, I saw those little wrens, which were pretty big. They were fat and juicy, and they were behind the bushes. There must have been 10, 12 of them. And I'll tell you what, mountain lions would have pounced on those really, really quick. And so where there's food and water, there's mountain lions. So where it's green, there's mountain lions. Where it's sparse and desert, sometimes there is, you'll find coyotes and, foxes and things like that. But where it's green, there's mountain lions. There's no question about it. So, and that means other things can eat. Other things get heavy and big and strong. That means they can eat them, and that's it. So that's how they look for where they want to go. And when there's no food here, they go to the suburbs. They go to the suburbs of Las Vegas, Nevada, and just because you have a wall doesn't mean anything. Little cat, little dog, they jump over, grab it, meal. What happened to Fido? What happened to Kitty? It's gone. It's gone. It's just instantly gone. And it happens all the time. So the most important thing is just don't ever leave your children out and about anywhere where there's any kind of mountain lions and things like that. And you got to be so safe all the time, 24/7, 365, super safe. All right. And you'll have plenty of journeys, plenty of adventures. Let's get this done. I'm excited. And then if it dries after we get back from my hike, I'll even put the rubber tip on it. Then all I have to do is throw a leather strap on it in 24 hours. Can't do it right away because it's going to be tacky. And in 24 hours, it'll be dry. 48 hours, it'll be really, really good. 48 hours, it'll be almost like completely dry. All right. All right, let's see what it feels like. Well, it's good enough. Definitely good enough. We're going to put the third coat on now and let it dry. I just found a little drip. I just wiped it. Let's see if there's any others. Don't see any. But on the third coat, you got to be careful you put it on too thick. So we're going to move this over there. It's a little, it's you can touch it. So we're good. I'll put it on. Here we go. Okay, so we got our hiking stick drying, and we'll just take a hike up 20 minutes back, and hopefully it'll be dry and go from there. So it should be good. All right, take a look at it. Looks pretty good. So what we're looking at here is the desert washout, and This is where the water comes down, and then it goes across the road a few times, and that's when the road has to be closed because all the water from the mountains above me come down rushing through here, and easy 3-4 feet sometimes, maybe even higher depending on how much rain and snow there is. If there's a lot of snow up there and then it's raining after that in the springtime, you can really get some really major floods in here. Now, to cross that, I wouldn't recommend it just because there's all kinds of thorns, rocks, twigs, and everything when there's water in there. If it's only a couple inches, you're probably fine. But other than that, I'd stay out of the washouts. All right, so we're going to just take a little hike up this way and check and see if we can find some jackrabbits. You know, the real big ones with like, 2-3 foot ears. You know, they're really awesome looking. So we're just going to tippy-toe through this little area and just keep our eye open for some jackrabbits and some birds, some wildlife. Here we go. Now what's interesting is in the desert, there's all kinds of little teeny washouts. And sometimes the washouts are little trails too. Little trails for rabbits, coyotes, foxes. Let me see if I can find a coyote trail here, because they're out here. There's lots of them out here. Not during the day, but at nighttime they're tracking around looking for those wrens and those little birds we saw that are about maybe 1 to 2 pounds each, making all kinds of noises, and we'll just see what we find. So we're hiking now. I was in the sun, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I'm in the shade, and it feels like it's maybe 40, 45, 20-degree drop real quick. And as the sun goes down, it'll get really cold quick. So we're just gonna walk up along here where it's green and see if we can find some wildlife. We found 2 black birds. It looks like they might have been crows. I couldn't tell by their clothes they were wearing what kind of crow they were. It could have been a yo crow or a crow or a who crow, or a lot of crows out there. So they talk to you. They talk to each other all the time. You heard them say something. They say, "Hey, let's get going." All right, so it's green down here. It's really green down here. We should see some birds, at least something. So this area here is all green. And there's like a little 10 by 10 little pond down there. And that feeds that spring water coming out of the mountain, feeds this whole area down here. And it also goes up this way, all the way up and up to the V, to the base of the V. So I wanted to share a story. When you hike along trails, most of the wildlife stays away from it. Plus, when you hike on trails like this, let me show you behind me. When you hike on a trail that's 5 feet wide, most of the wildlife's not going to hang out in this brush right here to come out and strike you. But when you're walking through tall grasses like down below there, that's where they're feeding and they're hunting. So now you're in their area, and they're not going to just tell you to move. They're just going to strike. And that's where a good pair of cowboy boots comes in handy, and also to a venom kit to extract venom if you do get bit, which is important. So the other aspect is, what type of animals come out at night? Well, if they hear voices, they're not coming out. When they hear quiet, that's when they come out. So if you hike quietly, they're coming out, which could be a dangerous thing. If you hike noisily, they'll probably avoid you, especially if you're talking, doing filming like me, unless they're extraordinarily hungry. Then they might follow your voice. So I want to continue with my story. And to continue with my story, I hiked up during a warm spring day, after many warm spring days, up one of these side rocky cliffs, up these cliffs behind me. And it didn't look like there was a trail, and it didn't look like anything walked there for thousands of years. I'm walking up, and all of a sudden, a chameleon that was really big, he was probably 5-6 inches big, he stops and looks at me and is like, "Where do you think you're going? You need to stop right here." And I said, "Okay, I understand. Thank you very much." I stopped. I looked up 10 feet in front of me, and there was a rattlesnake. So the chameleon actually warned me. So be aware that animals might not verbally be able to speak English or another language, but they have a language of their own, and their language is when they come to you, they're either attacking you or you're a friend, or they're warning you, and they know it, or they need your help, or they just came to say hi. But this one wasn't coming out to say hi. I could just tell. And there was the rattlesnake. And I've had many experiences like that. Many. So talk to the animals, they'll be your friend. Talk their language. Mimic their voice. Mimic their tone. Mimic them. They understand. Okay, so that's the V. And the sun is over there. And it's going to set probably somewhere around that point there, or further, like up in that area, somewhere about the V. And so it's getting late, it's getting cold, shadows are getting longer and bigger. So let's just go up here and check out a few things. As you can see, there's climbers. And the most important thing is to double rope or triple rope, and also top rope. That secures your safety, being super safe, and you'll most likely never have a problem ever climbing. And when you need to stop, you stop, and you can always go back down. Make sure you take enough rope with you, and make sure that you train in the gym with 2, 3, 4 ropes on your back, because if you need to take that with you, now you're trained for it. Anything less than those 4 ropes, then you're going to be out of rope. And when you're out of rope, well, we know what happens. All right, a little education. What is that black stuff on the rock? So you got black on one side and you got red on the other. Does the black happen when the iron comes to the top? That's the question. You need to research that and find out yourself. And then also research why a rock has texture like that. Why does a rock that's sitting on the side of a mountain, canyon, have texture? Now what will happen is if this gets really, really, really windy and another rock bumps it when there's ice on these rocks, that rock will eventually end up down in the desert. But another rock has to bump it, or there has to be an earthquake while there's an ice storm and all this red rock has ice on it. So that's how it works. And you can look, the V is up there, and that's looks like it's walkable, but I would go with somebody that knows what they're doing before you start walking the top of the mountain's edge. So I sewn my gloves, and also too, remember we talked about having a tied on your hat, a tie on your gloves, a tie in your jacket with some kind of cord, and make sure you always take a little match and burn the end so it doesn't fray out. And then sew it on with a nylon piece of thread, something that water's not going to affect it by, and you're good to go. And it's not about how sturdy. You just need to make sure that if it just gets bumped, it doesn't fall off your backpack. But I don't keep them in, I keep them out, so it's ready to roll, and we're good. Okay. I need to get a bigger backpack. I got to find something used, light like this, just because it's important. So that's one of my goals for this hike. I might be able to make this hike with this backpack up to the Shark Fin Mountain, but it's going to be tough. Five liters of water plus all the safety gear and everything else. I just saw a crow, and when there's one, there's two, but I didn't see the other one. And out of this whole canyon, if I'm focused on you, how did I know that there was a crow? Did I hear the crow? No. Your subliminal motion around you immediately tells you, and you have an inner computer in your brain that signals motion, and you have an inner computer that signals sound. So while you're talking, it's also tribally listening. Remember that. Count on it. It's real. So climbing up the V is very green, and there's snakes in there, especially in the spring. After a snowstorm and stuff like that, and it gets spring, and you're one of the first climbers in climbing up the V where there's spring water coming down, you got to be super careful. And also those side tributaries off the spring water green areas, you got to be careful there. There he goes. So he just came by to say hello. I heard him above me. He was grunting. I couldn't see him, so he was just above me, but he saw where I was, and then he just went right by me. I caught the glimpse of him as he flew by. Silent. If you think they're quiet. Mountain lions. 60, 70 feet. 10 yards. It's first and 10. They jump 20 yards. Okay? That's 60 feet. 20 yards. On a mountain, going down 70, 80 feet in a heartbeat. Or more, 90 feet. And as soon as they hit you, all they do is put their 3-inch claws into you, and they wipe you out. And they take you down. They throw you down that mountain. They tumble you. And by the time you get done tumbling, they're scratching their back going, oh, well, this is going to be good food for me. And then they just eat. And that's what mountain lions do. That's what they're trained to do. Jump, pounce, claw, tumble, it dies. You eat it. That's what mountain lions do all day long. Other animals do that too. So be aware of what's above you at all times. Right now, I have a gigantic rock cliff, and it overhangs. That means something would have to jump 50 feet straight down, which is a chance it could, but it's probably not going to happen. So I've pretty much spent my time up here. I have no more liters of water. Sometimes I keep an extra small bottle as a backup, and I keep that in there 24/7, 365, or 730. So I'm going to go down, pick up my hiking stick, and just standing, my back is killing me, my neck is killing everything's killing me, my shoulder, my lower back. So we're going to get going. Let's head out. Well, the sun is setting. It's just a glimmer on that rock there, and check it out over here. Here's a glimmer right here, and you can see that little area was chiseled out by a tribe, and they used that to sleep in. That's another area that's really cool. Now, when I first got out here a long time ago, not that long, but this area really didn't have a ton of these little areas of tons of rocks. What happens is people go climbing and they toss rocks down, and these rocks explode and they create all this rock litter all over the place. Now, one of the things you'll see is if no one comes out here over the winter and they get tons of rain, all these rocks will wash right off. So when you see tons of rocks, that means it hasn't rained in a long, long time, because the rain comes down these powerful and it just washes all these rocks away. Everything, all of that, right down to the desert, and it is clean as a whistle. I don't know what clean as a whistle means, because a whistle has nothing to do about being clean. I'm baffled. And we have balancing rock. That's been there thousands and thousands of years. And the reason it doesn't fall is it's tilted back towards the mountain pretty much, which is very interesting. It is time to go back, pick up our hiking stick, see how dry it is. Hopefully it's really dry. And also, there's a chance we'll glue the tip on. But that's probably not going to happen today. We'll probably do that tomorrow, 24 hours after. Now, once you let that dry and it gets firm, you can't just coat it again. It has to be a tacky texture in order to put a second or third or fourth coat on and so forth. And after you let it dry and it's sandable, if you wanted to sand it, you could sand it, denature alcohol it, and then start the coating process over 1, 2, 3, 4 coats. I don't try to make it like glass. I just try to make it so it's sealed and it's good. It was interesting that we left that bottom part raw, and the bottom could have, like I said, I could have diluted some of the stain with denatured alcohol and brought a little teeny dish or a little tin or a vegetable can and mix them up and then just wiped it on. It would have dried super fast, but I don't like to do anything super fast. I like going slow and making sure that it's really, really dry before I put the polyurethane on it. So it would have sealed it better. And you could probably put a few coats of thinned out stain, and it probably wouldn't darken it too much because it'll probably soak in so much. And then if you wanted to, you could actually, after you stain it a bunch of times, if it looks dark, you could actually sand it. And when you sand it, it'll bring out the light color again a little bit from the raw wood, let's just say. And then you could put another coat on top, or 2 coats, and then it would be really deep penetrating stain into the raw wood. But the polyurethane should be fine. And that is a lifetime hiking stick. Let's take a look at the Shark Fin Pass and Trail. All right, so we're headed back to find the walking stick. Ooh, and see how dry it is. I gotta get a pair of hiking boots. Oh my gosh, these things have no support. Doesn't matter if I use my black sneakers for walking or my yellow New Balance. They're brutal, but here we are. Let's check it out. There it is. Looking good. Looking good. Let's see how it feels. That's not bad at all. It's a little tacky, but not much. But like I told you before, when it's getting the third coat takes a lot longer to dry. And I'm sure this area is drier down here since it wasn't sealed at all. But it looks good. So now, what we'll do is we'll call it a day. Thanks for joining me here on Education and Safety, and my name's Mike, and we're headed out of here. So, whoops. Thanks for joining me on Education and Safety. I'm Mike, and let's get the leather strap on tomorrow and put that rubber piece on, let it dry for the next day and the next day. So Monday would probably be the first time it's usable. So Sunday it's going to dry. It's going to dry all night. Then I'll put it on tomorrow morning, the rubber piece, and then I'll put the leather piece on tomorrow, and then maybe tomorrow night, and then Monday morning it'll be ready to roll, or Tuesday. That's my guess. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the content, and a little education, a little safety, a little journeys, a little adventures, and that's what it's all about. Have some fun, be safe, and take your time, be patient. Until again, we'll see you.